Hey everyone, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast. This show is about helping you grow as a coach by standing on the shoulders of giants. Each show, you get a different mentor in your ear. The early motivations, the successes, the failures, the tools, the tricks, and the insight into where the industry is going. All of it so you can make your own dent in the world. Remember, success leaves clues. Now, without further ado, on to the show.
Hello and welcome to Season 2 of the Coach Catalyst podcast. I'm your host, Trevor Whitwer, and on today's episode, I have the pleasure of speaking with the one, the only David Weck. Now, if you're not fired up after this episode to get your jump rope out and start doing some roping, then you got to check your pulse. David Weck is such a dynamic individual, and this episode did not disappoint. David is most famously known for being the inventor of the Bosu ball. It's kind of that half dome stability ball that's in pretty much every single gym in the world. And so we dig into that story, how he brought the Bosu ball to fruition. And then we also get into a lot of his other inventions and also his plan to take over the world. So you're going to really enjoy this episode with the one, the only David Weck. I'll catch you on the flip side. David, welcome to the Coach Catalyst podcast.
Thank you, Trevor. Very excited to be here.
Man, I'm really excited for this conversation. So we had you at the Super Coach Summit, and you did a 20-minute talk at the Super Coach Summit, but you packed in about 90 minutes worth of content into that 20-minute talk. You're a super energetic dude, so I'm really excited for this conversation. And how I like to start a lot of these conversations, because you're a guy that's done a lot of different things. So when you're at a cocktail party, maybe it's on the beach, right? When someone comes up to you and meets you, how do you introduce yourself? Like, what do you tell them your profession is and what you do?
That's a great question. I think what I do now is I say I'm an inventor, but I'm really a biomechanist. So my passion is efficiency. Like, I'm very impatient in a car. If you're going to make a left, leave me enough room to make my right, before you can make your left. And with human movement, I had no choice but to seek different stimuli, modalities, because I'm not bigger, faster, stronger than a lot of athletes who are more genetically gifted than I am. So in order to compete at a higher level, I have to do things differently to gain advantage. And because I'm not an elite athlete, I don't hoard my knowledge. It's because I'm not an elite athlete that it's in my interest to make the elite athletes better so that they are the ones that people aspire to. And I've had a hand in making them better. And it's a super organic process.
So when you say athlete, like, what kind of athlete do you consider yourself to be?
I'm a B+. So I played Division III college football, college track. And the thing that I say always gets a laugh is I played Div 3 because there is no Division 4. Right. So I'm a B+. I'd say A- is the person who can play at Division 1 but not go pro. Would go pro, and A+ will set world records.
Right. So, for you, your sport was football growing up, and then it obviously evolved into other things from that.
Yes. Well, football was my absolute passion. My father didn't let me play until high school. So it was 4 years high school football, 4 years college football. I took it as seriously as if it were a career. And, I was going to the show. I knew I wasn't, but that was my absolute passion. They say faith, family, football. I was that kind of guy.
So, was it your passion for football that really got you interested in performance, like kind of optimizing your own performance, or was that kind of like a later thought?
Football was the driving factor. I think I started lifting weights when I was, 14, 13. And that was principally just to get bigger and better looking and stronger. Right. But as soon as football came around, when I'm 15 now in high school, suddenly it's like how much I can squat is much more important than how much I can do some other things. Mm-hmm. A deadlift, the big weight movements that put on the mass and give you a very high absolute strength and a good strength to weight ratio. That became the driving factor. And I measured it by what's my 40 time and how high can I jump? And then what's my agility times? And so those were the things that right out in the hallway at the high school outside of the weight room, we would constantly be racing and testing. Then we go into the basketball court and, okay, I could dunk a volleyball.
Okay.
Right? That's the best I could ever do. I ran a 4.640. That was the best I could do. I think if I knew now what I knew then, I think I could have gotten a basketball, and I think I would have got a 4.5.
Do you got big enough hands? Can you palm a ball?
No, it has to be one of those grippy ones. But if you can't palm it, there's several strategies, right? And if you can get two hands above the rim and sort of just do that, you can make it look like a dunk.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Have someone throw you an alley-oop or something, and then all you got to do is just flick it in. You don't need to hang on to it.
Yeah. Just touch it, and now I got the dunk. And but if you can't do it in a game, then I'd say you're not really a dunker.
Yeah.
If you need pristine, like I'm not even going to dribble.
Right.
Like that, you can dunk, but you can't dunk.
Right. Yeah. I'm a basketball guy, so that hits home for me. I always like our little guards, our guards that say they can dunk, and it's really like a finger roll, and I grab the rim at the end, and then I say I can dunk. Yeah. But no, it's all, I love it.
As a coach that runs challenges, I needed my life back. I had stuff all over the place. A Facebook group for community interaction, Google Sheets for check-ins and measurements, and was drowning in email communication. As my challenges grew past just a handful of people, I started to notice clients were falling through the cracks. I began researching virtual assistants because I just couldn't manage it all. And truthfully, the client experience was going down the drain. Luckily, a friend recommended Coach Catalyst and just told me to trust her. I'm sure glad I did. Now I can run my challenges with 2 or 200 clients with just a few clicks. The lessons get delivered on the right days, the accountability happens automatically, and most importantly, the communication is all in one spot. I even created 2 new challenges from the Coach Catalyst library. Best part, didn't have to change a thing. I used to spend 15 minutes just trying to log into all the apps I needed. Now I log in and my dashboard tells me who needs a shout out and who needs a kick in the butt in about 15 seconds. I feel like a huge weight is lifted off of my shoulders. I can finally spend my time coaching again instead of worrying about all the admin work. Do your brain a favor and get Coach Catalyst.
So you graduate. Performance has always been your thing, right? You're just trying to optimize your own performance and just, get to your own ceiling, even though that may not mean going to the next level. But then kind of where did life take you after that? Was performance like, hey, I want to help other people do this?
What happened was I went to a very good school, Williams College, and it's a feeder for Wall Street consulting, making money. We've had graduates who are the president of the United States to, commissioner of Major League Baseball, founder of AOL. So there's a lot of successful people coming out of Williams. And I would just cover my butt with good grades. So I graduated with honors, and I did an internship at Bankers Trust on Wall Street my junior summer. And that's when I made the determination that I didn't want that life where, you're on the train, you're making a lot of money, you have a house in the Hamptons, whatever it is. I just didn't want that life because I wasn't passionate about it. So I dove into acting when I graduated. So moved to New York, got an agent, auditions, jobs, and did that for 7 years. And I was fortunate that I didn't get the big part because I went in, called back. I read with producers. I read with name actors, auditioning, 3 times for Steve Martin kind of stuff. But I never got the big job. So when I conceived of the concept for the Bosu ball, I was ready for that, rocket fuel to financial success. And this was back in the .com bubble where money was just everywhere. My friends who painted houses, I'm a day trader now. So one night I thought of the Bosu. I fell off a stability ball. I closed my eyes, tilted my head. Next thing I know, I did a backflip, bounced off the ball, did a backflip, almost broke my neck, kicked my feet to make sure I could still do it. And later that night, I was like, what if I cut the ball in half? And then it was just instantaneous. Oh my gosh, what if I cut the ball in half? I've never seen that. They sell millions of balls every year. I'll be able to sell millions of these things. I'll have a patent. And so it was just energy, and it was ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
So it was just like launch out of the starting blocks and bang a drum, and you do right things and you do wrong things. And if you're fortunate, you work hard enough, well, hopefully you can overcome them and get to that sustainable success.
Right.
So what I invent, I want it to stand the test of time because of its efficacy.
Right.
And the wonderful thing about the physical realm, athletics in particular, is that it's 100% objective. So it's a physical task. You either scored the touchdown or you didn't. You either did 10 push-ups or you didn't, right? So we have that phenomenon where an advantage, a God's honest advantage, becomes a necessity.
Mm-hmm.
And once you're a necessity, you're ubiquitous. And that's what we are literally in the process of doing here is we've flipped the script on the paradigm as it relates to gait. Locomotion being the fundamental functional movement that's underneath it all. And the prevailing theory was that the core doesn't generate the power, it's the shoulders and the hips. And so therefore you have to keep your core stiff and neutral to run your fastest. But that's not true. So what you have to do to run is you have to harness the differentiation and land in a balanced position where my head aligns over my foot. So if we were to freeze the position, you can stay there. Mm-hmm. Whereas if I'm braced in the middle, I'm off balance. So if my head is inside of my foot and my spine is not coiled to make it go over the full foot, then by definition, the force vector is going whichever direction my head's in. Mm-hmm. So you're in martial arts, you learn that where your head goes, your body goes. So it's a very easy reference to get. And because it represents the true efficiency and true X on the map, and that's new information, the challenge becomes how fast can we create adoption of a better technique, which a lot of the experts are not interested in because it's not from their unique selling proposition. Mm-hmm. And if I'm to find out that the foundation of my training program is built on a false model of economy for locomotion, well, then what effects do I have in terms of my exercise selection to create a training stimulus in the body that produces a training response that's favorable? So we are literally operating as if this were the Fosbury flop. That's a high jump technique that high jumpers have to do because technically it is superior to going over front ways or scissor kicking. Whatever other method of jumping over a bar, it's inferior biomechanically to Fosbury, which is why you see 100% adoption of that technique. Now, if you were to count all the high jumpers in the world, I mean, you could fit them on a subway in Manhattan. you know, it'd be crowded, but it's not a lot of people. Right. But walking and running, how many people do that?
Right.
You're probably looking at 8 billion, right? I mean, aside from those who are not fortunate to be able to do that, but that's a very small percentage. So the impact of what we're doing is going to have this ripple effect that helps make every step stronger for everyone. And that's my mantra. It's my goal. I get up every day, jump out of bed. It's my work and my family. Mm-hmm. And having spent a decade in Manhattan from 22 to 32, I got a lot of living done, under my belt. So there's no midlife crisis. Right. And you know what I mean? Like I've done all that stuff. I've done it all, right? Like, okay, whatever. That's not fulfilling in a long-term perspective.
Right.
Like I'm looking for that enduring. Go ahead.
Right. Well, we're going to get to like all the stuff you're doing today. And I think we're going to spend a lot of time with that, but let's go back a little bit. Were you still really interested in performance while you were on Wall Street and doing that? Were you just kind of still working out and staying in shape and doing that stuff?
Well, for football, during the course of football, I was, I wouldn't go to the Grand Canyon with my family because if I missed 2 leg days, well, that's going to compromise me in September. So there was total dedication to performance. And then when I went into acting, there was a lot of exploration into other physical aspects other than just running faster and jumping higher, faster agility. So, and I fell in love with rollerblading when I lived in Manhattan because literally it's an island that is a skating rink for all intents and purposes because the whole thing's paved.
Right.
And I skated everywhere and I did that for 6 years. And I'm a very, I guess, intense person who I will tend to overdo anything I do that I like. And so I didn't walk for 6 years because skates on my feet was this effortless power. And I can go so fast with so much less effort. And it just felt so good. But the consequence of being trapped in those skates for 6 years was my feet were like a newborn. I mean, no callus whatsoever, no strength whatsoever. And one day I tweaked my back picking up the motorcycle that I had dropped. And I felt my back. A couple of days later, it seized in pain. And I had chronic back pain, meaning every single day for more than a year because I didn't know then what I know now. So it was this long drawn out process to assimilate the fact that, if my feet are weak, they're preventing me from doing that. And if I can't do that, then up in the kinetic chain has to now make some compensation. And you're never resolving the force cleanly without this sort of restrictive protective tension in the body. And you don't get better when something seizes up. Mm-hmm. So it was the process with the stability ball that morphed into the Bosu ball that made my feet incredibly strong and my reflexes incredibly keen. So when somebody loses balance, it's not the first imbalance that creates the fail. It's the, oops, I went here. And then it's the over adjustment to that balance. So a surfer who's good or a skateboarder who's good can sort of feel and anticipate that I'm not overreacting to anything. I'm just riding perfect synchronicity with it. Right. So that became a big passion of mine. And we were jumping over cars. I was hanging on to cars, going down staircases. And, it was riding half pipes. And that was pure bliss for me, just pure bliss. And so every spare hour I was skating in Manhattan. And I went all my personal training clients, I would skate to the next appointment. So it was, it was a practical means of transportation that I had a passion for and I loved it. And that led to the back pain, which then led to a lot deeper education because I now had pain. And people pay for pain. Like how many Advil do they sell versus how many vitamins do they sell? Mm-hmm. Right, Advil is advertised, on the 6 o'clock news, and it's all about pain and problems. Right. That for most people. So when I was in pain, it was just like I need to get out of pain. Right. And I couldn't go the surgical route, so it was like, okay, well, I have to figure out how to unscramble the egg here. And just through trial and error, I found it and I built my back into incredibly robust and strong, whereas it used to be incredibly weak and painful. Mm-hmm.
So you said
it was a minimal.
So you said you couldn't go the surgical route. And was that because you didn't want to go that route, or it just wasn't like it wasn't like a bulge disc that they just wanted to go in and shave off?
Right. What happened was I was begging surgeons to cut me. Like I would go into a doctor and I'd be like, can you please just schedule an operation and fix my back? You're like, that's just, the American way, quick and easy. Here we go. Right? Jiffy Lube. So none of the surgeons would do that. And I think I didn't have like a real bad MRI. Yeah. You know what I mean? Right. It was more of just my nervous system had a hitch that it couldn't get out of. And I destroyed my right arm when I was 16 years old. You see, I don't have a triceps.
Yeah.
And you see how it doesn't go straight. And you see how the tendon is hanging on by a thread. So I was 16 years old when that happened. I was told I would never play football again. It was, and I can't support weight through this arm. So that forced me to sort of compensate to this side and use my lats as opposed to my tricep. So I would wedge. And so that was sort of started to teach me this concept of coiling because I had no choice because I couldn't do that. And as a consequence of always biasing this side and then squatting 500 pounds and just, taking the wear and tear, I have a replaced hip. And I move like you would never guess that I have a replaced hip. And because of my movement skill, I can go out in the lab or the field and I can hang with 25-year-olds. I mean, if they're a better athlete, they're just a better athlete. But I have a certain amount of agility. Agility is my highest ability. If I'm going to compare myself to others, I'm very agile, quick, and responsive. I'm not powerful. I'm not fast. I don't leap out of the gym. None of that stuff. But from an agility standpoint, it's world class. So I get to move and play at 53 years old in a way that in some respects is a lot more fun than when I was younger and stronger.
Right.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is.
The Super Coach Summit by Coach Catalyst is room for opportunity.
It's badass.
It's fucking awesome.
Over-delivered. They talked about it, and they definitely did it. Is amazing. It's just been invigorating.
Is exemplary. It's phenomenal and just a great time with great people. And you feel like in Ohana, you feel like a family.
It's unreal.
Is awesome. What will help separate the 1% from the 99% is a really well thought out event, well conceived, well planned, and well executed.
It's such an amazing event to be at in order to grow your business and network with other professionals.
It is top tier. It's one of the best I've been to in the business. It's been unbelievable, and I'm just excited to finish out the day here and keep making connections.
It's an event that you will be very happy that you have attended because next year is going to be even better than this one.
Is freaking badass. If you're not here, you're missing out. See you next year.
So when you fell off the Bosu ball, was that while you were kind of rehabbing the back and getting the back up to speed?
Yes, my back was probably, at that point, probably about 70% better. And standing on the ball hey, I'm on a podcast. Guys, I'm on a podcast. Thanks. Sorry about that.
Yeah, no worries.
So what happened was standing on the ball, if you're doing it in a very athletic, sort of aggressive manner, you're prepared for the failure. So if you fall off while you're doing something challenging, you're really set to fall. And so you're guarded against it. But I went the minimalist route that was inspired by a man named Feldenkrais. And he has a whole somatic education therapy system that's named for him, Feldenkrais method. And his first step was to reduce the effort to absolute minimum so that now my nervous system can discern subtlety. And I can now, in this relaxed state, feel, it hurts here. So if I just move it here, does that provide relief? And so you start tuning the nervous system with a very fine dial when you go to that minimalist approach. I tried that on a stability ball. So I'm there. I close my eyes, which make balance. The eyes have a huge effect on balance because in the lower brain and the occipital region, your body is scanning for horizontals and verticals that gives you reference. So you have the horizon line, you have the trees, and that gives you the grid. And when you eliminate that grid, you don't have that immediate reference. Balance is a lot harder. And then I did a vestibular adjustment where I tilted, which will have a big impact on your balance. And I fell so abruptly in an unguarded state that, the backflip and the kick in the feet, I was genuinely scared. that I could literally break my neck if I were to continue down that path. And by stabilizing the ball, by cutting it in half, I had that resilient, elastic surface and the arc that teaches my feet how to engage the ground from the outside to the inside. The coordination and real-time reactive ability that is all below thought. You don't have time to think about it. All that stuff was just getting higher and higher. And what the Bosu ball did was it just took me to a whole nother level. And then I was able to build on a resolved, functional, strong body subsequent. And it was the Bosu ball that brought me across the finish, because there's essentially no risk on the dome of a Bosu ball.
Right. So the Bosu ball, I mean, you invented the Bosu ball, so there was nothing like it at the time. So what was step one in being like, okay, I know what a stability ball is. I know what I want to create. How do I take this and make it into this?
Yeah, well, this is my process. That has been my process, and it's my process today. Is I'll conceive of something, and then my first job is to build a viable prototype. So in the case of the Bosu ball, Friday night is when I thought of it. Saturday morning was when I started constructing it. So I went to the hardware store and I bought a round tabletop. I bought staples, glue, tape, and I cut a ball in half, wrapped it around that platform, the round wood, stapled it in with 200 staples, glued up, seal all the leaks. I had to end up shellacking the wood because wood is actually porous to air. So I had to coat the thing with shellac to keep it airtight. And I had a prototype on Sunday that was viable. So, and I remember I was in my parents' garage and my father, I'm like, Dad, come on out, check this out. He stood on it. He said, David, if you can get a patent on this, I think you got a fortune. And so he became my business partner. I dropped everything, called my agent. I'm no longer an actor. I'm an inventor. And built the prototype. Then I brought the prototype. I would deflate it and put it in a big, hefty trash bag. And I'd skate to my next appointment, pull it out, inflate it. And I worked with from 9-year-old to 88-year-old and, a lot of, and people in the middle.
Yeah.
So I got to test it on, 12 different clients, and I could find something productive to do with every one of them. And then it was setting my sights on the IP, getting the patent, and then seeking out the manufacturing. And in order to get the marketing going, I could build a viable prototype, took 6 hours to do. And I I rented a whole wood shop, hired one of my brother's friends, and I made hundreds of these handmade prototypes that I would sell at a loss, but I would sell them. So it wasn't a gift like, oh, yeah, okay, great, whatever.
Yeah.
It was, no, I want it and I'm going to pay for it. And I seeded the marketplace with the U.S. ski team. They were my first sale. So I show up in Park City. I'm patent pending October 4th. I'm in Park City selling the first 2 Bosu balls on October 14th. So 10 days later, I make my first sale. And then he tells me, I love this thing so much, I want 24 more of them as soon as you can get it. And so what I said to him was, all right, well, let's make a deal. I'll make you these 24 for free if I can be designated an official supplier to the U.S. ski team. He's like, okay, sure, no problem. So we got that designation of official supplier with these handmade prototypes that they were shipping all over the world. And when I go up to Park City and visit them. I've had several top male skiers say your Bosu ball was a pivotal piece of the puzzle for me getting back from the knee surgery to get back on the slopes and win a medal. Because at the time, every male skier at the world-class level had blown out a knee at some point in their training or competition. At that breakneck level where you're going down that thing so fast,
right?
It's a catastrophe waiting to happen. So, and then with the ski team, I just sold to them. I'm official supplier to them. I reach out to the Yankees.
Yeah.
Hey, I just sold something to the ski team. They love it. You want to see it? They bought it. The Lakers, they bought it. the New Jersey Devils, they bought it, and the Los Angeles Rams, they bought it. And they were all the championship teams in the big four sports. So by the time I hit the fitness and rehab market, I had an amazing story.
Right.
Like, here's this brand new device, and, all these people at the highest levels are using it and recommending it. Okay. Don't trust me, trust those guys.
Right.
And it was also the right time. So instability was in vogue, and this offered sort of the very unique feature is that it is a balance of stable and unstable. Mm-hmm. So meaning I can jump on a Bosu ball, like multiple times body weight. I can hit it and jump when the dome is up. So the device is 100% stable. It will never betray you by slipping out from under. And so now I have this very interesting thing because the nervous system can sense danger. So if you fear imbalance, that becomes the number one priority for that instant, is that you resolve that balance or fall. So if I slip on the banana peel, by the time I've slipped to the point where I hit the ground, that was the crisis that needed to be handled now. And it out prioritized all other priorities, even breathing, for that moment. Mm-hmm. So when I'm on a precarious surface where there is risk that, if I jump on it, I could break my ankle, like a little inflatable air cushion. So that puts the nervous system under a state of restrictive tension that uproots the body and prevents that speed of transmission with the athletic fluidity of I need it now, right? So if I'm training and creating this like tension that I'm not delivering to the ground, I'm putting my body and my nervous system into a state of counterproductive tension. Why would I want to spend any time in that state? I mean, the only reasonable answer would be that, if I go through that state, I'm going to emerge on the other side better. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't make a lot of sense because you're just patterning and habituating this like tension, this uprooted tension. So, okay, well, what are you going to get better at? What you do. Mm-hmm. So that made the Bosu ball very special. Most people don't know that's why it was special, but that's really why it was special. And the versatility. I mean, I can do so many things with it. So I knew that I had a value proposition with that idea, and I knew that once it was introduced and succeeded, it would never go away. Mm-hmm. So now it is its own little category. There's probably 200, 300, 500 knockoffs, but it's a Bosu ball.
Right.
So if I go to Costco and I buy Kirkland tissues, well, what'd you pick up? I got Kleenex. Mm-hmm. Right. I want cotton swabs. What'd you buy? You bought Q-tips. Mm-hmm. Right. So when you have created the category, now the trademark becomes even more valuable than the patent, because the patent's going to expire. But the trademark and the brand and the trust and the source, that is invaluable. Right. So Q-tip has the biggest market share of cotton swabs. Kleenex has the biggest market share of facial tissues. Bosu ball has the market share for half balls.
Right. How'd you come up with Bosu? Like, where does the name come from?
That's a great one. Originally I was naming it the Balanced Turtle because it sort of looks like a turtle.
Right.
And the trademark office didn't allow me that name because there was some other device that had the name turtle. And so I said to my attorney, I'm like, all right, well, what do you think I should do now? And he's like, well, if you sort of take an acronym and make up a word, the odds that it's going to be unavailable are very low. So what I did was I said, okay, both sides up. I can use it this way. I can use it this way. And so to blend that, it's just a Bosu. And that became the name.
Yeah.
And I'm very happy that they rejected my first application.
Yeah, I don't know if the turtle one would have caught on as well as Bosu ball. So it was probably.
I like to think that the utility of the product itself would overcome stupid decisions and give me a little bit of grace and leeway.
Right. No, that's awesome.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
My favorite thing about Coach Catalyst.
One of the things I love most about Coach Catalyst.
There are lots of things I love about Coach Catalyst.
And the reason why I love Coach Catalyst is that
the accountability off the back of that
is simplicity.
The support is amazing.
It allows me to give so much of me to my clients.
It's the drip feeding of content.
I can schedule lessons for my clients in advance.
Game changer for freeing up time.
It gives me my time back.
It's so simple and so easy.
Hi, I'm Kane, the founder of Coach Catalyst, the #1 accountability and communication software on the market today. We help coaches just like you keep their clients accountable and scale their business beyond what they've ever been able to do before. So if that sounds like something you want, let's take a look at how we can help. So Coach Catalyst was built on the 4 C's of coaching. Those are content, communication, community, and consistency. So for content, you need to go beyond just workouts and deliver the whole experience for the client so they get the results they deserve. For communication, you need to own your communication. If you don't own the communication, you don't own the client. So make sure you stop texting clients and use a centralized platform. For communities, get off of Facebook groups and take ownership over your social group with Coach Catalyst communities. And for consistency, the foundation of all results for clients, we took the best-selling book Atomic Habits and built all these fundamentals right within our app that's going to guarantee to get your clients the best results possible. If you want to start using the 4 C's with your clients, content, connection, community, and consistency, make sure you run over to Coach Catalyst and start a free trial today.
Well, so I'm actually curious about the journey, right? So I can really see how skiers would tie into a product like this right away, because when you're skiing, right, you're not on level ground. Like, it's very unpredictable what you're going to get. You might get soft patches, you might get hard patches. And so it's not a predictable terrain versus like a basketball court, right, where it's pretty much the same thing everywhere, right? You just have other things that you have other humans to move around. And so was that a very conscious decision of like, okay, this makes a lot of sense for this sport? And then the next question is like, how do you get a call with, the Olympic ski team? Because they probably get pitched on products all the time and like, hey, come check out this or come check out that. You just show up with the ball and like hang out in the parking lot.
Yeah, that you nailed it right on the head, because what happened, I had the advantage of, it was still back in the day when there was a ground landline telephone in the weight room and in the office. So you could look up a number and someone was going to answer that phone, because that's just the way it was done. Right now, it's a cell phone, and if I don't know the number, I'm not even going to pick it up. Right?
Exactly. Right.
So what happened was, I had written a letter to the ski team because I was like, it's you put 4 of them right there. It's moguls in the gym. It's like, okay, this is so obvious that it's good for them. And what I did was I told I wrote a letter to the director of sports science ski team, and I heard nothing back. And it was like 2 weeks. I'm like, Dad, what should I do? He's like, well, call him up. I'm like, well, what do I say? And he goes, well, David, here's my secret. When I'm making those sales calls, I make the assumption that the person on the other end desperately wants and needs what I'm selling, and they just don't know it yet. And I was like, okay, Dad, you make the call. So he called the ski team, and the guy I wrote the letter to had left his job, and this guy was a new guy. So my letter, it didn't even get read.
Right.
And so my father, 45 minutes later, he calls me up. He's like, David, you have an appointment next Tuesday or next Thursday in Park City. You just let them know whatever works best, get your tickets and go get them. And so when I show up in Park City, there's snow on the ground. This is October 14th, 1999. And Andy Walsh was the head of their sports science. And he comes in on a motorcycle, and he's got a cold, so his nose is all red and sniffly. And he opens up his office door, and there's these 2 rooms in the office, and on the walls are these shelves, and it was boxes of products.
Right.
So I come in his office and I look, my first statement is, wow, you have a lot of products in here. And he goes, yeah, people send me shit all the time because they want me to validate it. I'm like, well, here's my thing, right? And the difference with the Bosu ball was that he was able to make an immediate association that, oh, I see the utility in this. Mm-hmm. And then his assistant, or one of the trainer there, he's like, he is going to absolutely love this. I want to buy these 2, and then I want 24 more because we're going to ship them to there and ship them to there. And so it was sort of coming up against that conventional sort of process, but having a utility product and then having the wherewithal to open the door and then close the deal. So if you could get me in a room with the strength coach back then, I could sell the Bosu ball.
Right. What did your dad say on that call? Did you ever ask him?
He's just so good on the phone. And I think he uses phrases like, I understand that, but, you know, like he's the kind of guy who can, at the airline counter, there's no more seats available. And I understand that, but, you know, he'll get himself on the plane. Right. You know, he's fearless on the phone and he's just great at it.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Well, what a great guy to have in your corner, especially early on.
I mean, listen, you got it to start a fire. You need a spark. So if you can't spark, well, it's going to be hard to light a fire.
Right. So, I mean, obviously the Bosu ball turned into a household name. Like it's in pretty much every gym. And everyone knows the name and what it is. Right. And so there's probably more story to that, but that's like the first kind of piece that you did. And so now you probably got the wheels spinning on, okay, I've created this thing. When did the next thing come up and what was that product?
What happened was the Bosu ball, I worked, you know, on it and I got to the juncture where like, I'm either going to build the company or I'm going to license this. And I chose to license it and that bought me time so that I could learn more. And then I got really into this both sides utilized using the hands and the eyes. And I started manipulating a stick where I'd turn the stick and do like these figure eights with the stick. And I did that a lot. And I noticed like, wow, my non-dominant performance, the non-dominant side was ratcheting up very quickly. So it was capable of doing much more, sort of reciprocating the action of the dominant. And then you sort of do it back and forth. The non-dominant starts to pick up the dominant role. And then the dominant starts to pick up the non-dominant role. When you give somebody a baseball and say, throw it with your left hand, you're a righty. What they're going to do is they're going to throw it, but their dominant side's not going to do that non-dominant thing because non-dominant does not like to be non-dominant and non-dominant wants to be dominant. So you have to sort of compare and contrast to get that. So what that led to was an invention that I called the Quick Hands Bola trainer. It was two sort of spongy balls tethered together by an elastic cord. And it was like the ultimate cat toy. This thing, you could move it in any plane of motion. You could get the thing going 110 miles an hour and you could bounce it and coordinate. You could spin it. I mean, it's just, if Duncan had launched his yo-yo today, it would fail because it's not electronic and there is a very steep learning curve to getting any good at it. Now, you create that in the 1930s or whatever, when, you know, there is no other entertainment and people have large attention spans. You create a phenomenon where like, oh, now millions of people are doing this thing because it was cool at the time. And today it still exists and people are stuffing stockings with a little 99-cent yo-yo every Christmas, right? So everybody's interacted with one of them. But if it were not in existence at a time when it would onboard and become a thing, it wouldn't go anywhere today. And that's what the Quick Hand Bola suffered from is in order to have any fun with it, you had to be coordinated and you had to put in some time, right? And so if I'm looking for a training stimulus, well, I can't devote 20 hours to this before I can see a result.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it doesn't fit in. So that product was unsuccessful. So 2,500 units took me a long time to sell. And in selling products, the turn is how fast you can move the inventory. And time is money, right? They say money's fungible, but, you know, a box of a product is not. You know what I mean? But that's what it is, and that's what it's going to be. And so you either got to sell that or eat the money, right? So that was my next one. And then in 2004, I was presenting at a conference in New York City, and I met Buddy Lee, who is one of the best jump ropers in the world. I watched his performance with the rope, And I had the insight that, wait a minute here. A lot of the times the rope's going around, he's not going through. What if I eliminate jumping through it and I do everything else? And so he gave me his rope, and I got home San Diego, I'm in my backyard 11:30 at night. And that's when I began 30 days, as much training as I can do, not jumping through, not even once. And what happens is that restriction gives you have to now rotate every rep, and four patterns emerge where the figure eights are going overhand led by the thumb, the figure eights are going underhand led by the pinky, both hands doing opposite at the same time, and then one behind the back and the other in front. That's all you can do is 4 patterns, and everything else is built on those patterns. And so what I did was I aligned those patterns with the cardinal directions. So I had a precise north, south, east, and west, and the patterns correspond to those orientations. So the overhand, we call that south. The underhand, we call that north. The sideways dragon roll, which just looks like, what? He's not jumping. It looks like he's jumping. That is the east and the west. And then the sneak is back to north and south. And having the seamless capacity to transition through those different patterns gives you this mathematically precise movement where 90 degrees in your cells of your body. And during that 90 degrees and knowing it, I have a 100% integration, and the rope just tells the truth, because the rope only does what you do to it. And this fluid medium, you have to have enough centrifugal force that you're feeding information to both, and you know when it's smooth and you know when it's not. And enough reps like that attenuated to this path to perfection. The rope will always tell you the truth. You do it enough, and now you take the rope away, you've mapped all the space inside your body. If I punch you, I'm hitting you with the floor. And I'm always prepared to punch. Because it's never not integrated, because I learned it with the ropes. And that was 2004. And what's interesting about that is in the pandemic is when rope flow sort of condensed and became water droplets, not just mist in the air. And now we have tens of thousands of people, perhaps even hundreds, doing rope flow, where what you do is you do the rope without jumping through it. And so it's sort of, is the ultimate complement to a jump rope. And jumping rope is good, so it's not bad. But the one that's more valuable athletically, and the one that will serve the person with a bum knee or the person who's 300 pounds, is the rope flow. So the behavior is starting to sort of, oh, wow, I can do that. Like someone who would never want to jump rope can be very enticed by that. But we can go as intense as we want with the rope flow to make it just as intense as jumping the rope. So that really set the seed for me learning how to use my hands, and then learning that this double down action with the upper body gives me more power than one up, one down. So if I do this, that now is a lot of momentum, and I'm waiting for sort of that to pull me forward, then set it up. But if I'm hitting and hitting and hitting, every step I take is more powerful. And the irony is that harder, faster, externally creates softer, easier in the body, because of the way that the fascial tissue it'll boom, get tense. And now it's not a joint by joint, it's this fluid transmission of force. And if the body's in balance and you have that fluid force, which the rope flow gives it to you, now you can use the hands to make you move faster and more agile. And I created propulse speed trainers so I could now move mass up and down and eliminate the inertia that comes from a solid weight that's hard to slow down and speed up. And that when it shifts, I get this rebound effect where when I'm going down, the weight's at the top, I get to stop something that weighs practically nothing, and then all that weight hits and ricochets off. And my connective tissue recoils in response to that. And so if I have my finger here, this would be the analogy of no weight, right? Then this would be the analogy of a solid weight, right? So there's an inertia and it's slowing it down. And this is analogous to what the pulsars do. So they put a force, goes away, boom, boom, as opposed to boom, 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 and as opposed to slow. So it's a revolutionary concept. And by the time this airs, we will have our Propulse Power Vest available. And by the time this airs, we've probably sold thousands and thousands of them, because the Propulse Power Vest has a spring-loaded pulsar in it that allows you in the vest. The slogan that I'm using is, you do what you do, the vest does what it does, and you're faster. And so what we have now is we have a zero learning curve training tool that is transformative. So I don't care if you're technically proficient or not at running, you put this on and you're faster. So we can get you even faster if we make you more technically proficient. But this training stimulus on top of what you are now makes you faster. And it's the intellectual property is so strong.
So, I mean, with that, so it's essentially a spring. So when you hit the ground, the spring is loading, and then when you come out of it, it propels you out. Is that an accurate?
Yes, that's it. So basically, what it does is inside here is a weight and a spring. So even if I just go up, you hear how the weight has its own inertia. So it's here, it's in rest and wants to stay at rest. And when I lift it up, that inertia keeps the weight there, and then the spring goes bing. And it all happens so fast that it'll change faster than you can change your body weight, so you can't outrun the spring. And Cav is a guy who's going to tell you.
And he works with some of the elite of the elite, and so that's crazy. And so, I mean, is the mechanism behind it? I mean, because theoretically, you can't run a race, you can't play a game in the vest, right? Like you have to play on an even playing field. And so, is it essentially just teaching your nervous system and your fascia how to load and unload quicker and create more of like a springing effect, basically?
There is both a neural education adaptation and then a physiologic adaptation response. So you're getting that perfect timing with an audible that synchronizes you up. It's that tick, 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 get off the ground, get off the ground. And that mechanism you can't outrun it. And it's basically just, again, no learning curve. And you're spiking force that is 10 ounces in free flight, which essentially weighs nothing. And then it hits with some exponential multiple of what that 10 ounce slug is. And with the handheld one, the hand can move faster than gravity. The body cannot. So your body's core cannot drop any faster than gravity will pull it.
Right.
Right. So Barry Sanders has the ability to drop his core, lift his feet, make the adjustment. You go that way because you bid on that. I go that way. Right. So that speed is just gravity. And so when I'm able to spike the force right at that amortization, so you have the landing, loading, launching. If I can get that sweet spot of load and spike it, all my body's tissues are now dealing with an overload. But the time under tension is so fractionally small that the education of the nervous system is like, oh, I'm going to apply force and I'm going to let it go. I'm going to bing. I'm going to bing. So you pattern that. And now you take it off and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, wow.
Right. See, you're providing that overload at the moment of that transition where, I mean, people try to do this, right? Like you try and do like you put the rubber bands on, you do the jump mats, that kind of stuff. People try, you put a barbell on your back and load it up a little bit and you're doing squat jumps, but the load is the whole time. The load is not just at that moment. So the difference is here, it's like you're free falling, but then once you hit that bottom and want to come back up, that's when you have to overcome this load, but it's not so great where it affects the movement pattern.
The irony is that overcoming the load happens so quickly that it triggers a connective tissue recoil. So it's sort of like you go to the doctor and he hits your knee, your knee, the patella tendon, and you bink. You sort of do it, but you didn't do it, kind of a thing. And that stimulus is creating tissue development.
Right.
But it feels good.
Yep.
Like I've had NFL players come in here and be like, I feel lighter with this thing on. It's 12 pounds. Like I had Darius Clark, he has the world record, official Guinness, measured. Is not just, oh, I did this in my backyard. This was an event with Guinness there. And he set the running vertical jump height. He set the world record, right? He came into the lab and we tested him in pogo jumps with the vest. The height differential was minuscule. Like it might have gone a tiny bit higher without it, but it was close. But the time on the ground was the same or faster with the vest. So I think I counted like 7 frames in terms of time on the ground. And this one was like probably 6.9 and this one was probably 7.2, just in terms of what you could interpret on the video. So here I am giving you a plyometric effect with a genuine like distance traveled, but I've reduced the time or kept the time constant. And power equals force divided by time multiplied by distance. So in order to make the power very high, if I affect the denominator of time and I reduce time, that creates an exponential jump in the power.
Right.
Whereas the distance would be arithmetically higher. It's just going to proportionately go up this, but the other one's going to go up like that. So it's sort of hockey sticks up.
And I mean, you kind of know this intuitively when you're watching great athletes, right? Great athletes have a fluidness to them. They have it's almost like an effortless type of movement because they're heavy connective tissue, heavy fascia. They're not trying to muscle through movements. There's just a level of fluidness to it, right? Like it's an effortless type movement. And I probably most people up to this point were kind of just you kind of either have it or you don't, right? To an extent, and it's not maybe necessarily a trainable quality, but even some of the stuff you're doing, it's really looking at how do we train some of this fluidity and efficiency and create better connective tissue and fascial tissue to be able to support that.
And build muscular strength in between. See, the way I look at strength is strength just means pressure management. So if I can handle some level of pressure, well, then I'm stronger than if I can't handle that pressure. And when it's just pressure management, now we can start to think of, oh, well, how fast and fluidly can I make that force flow to the ground and back up? So it's systemic. And I think fascia, it's such an interesting, ubiquitous body tissue that it used to be ignored because we're going to remove the casing so we can look at the thing in the case. But it turns out that everything is encased. So each individual cell is wrapped in fascia, and the whole thing is wrapped in fascia, and every layer in between is wrapped in fascia. And I think fascia responds mechanically to a stimulus, a force, without having to route a signal to the spine and back. So when I put my finger on the flame, I feel pain because it went to my spinal cord. It didn't even need to get to my brain. But I didn't feel it until that distance traveled. So I did burn myself because it was a little late in sensing that. I think fascia has its own mechanical intelligence where if something happens, well, it happens in response to that. It doesn't need a signal from the central nervous system to do something peripheral. And when you systemically can load the ground and add like a little symbol, you're just tweaking that moment and making that moment give you more snap. Then I'm getting like the fascial structure is setting up in a manner that is helping manage that hydraulic pressure, which, your body's water. Pneumatics is breath. The rest of the body is hydraulic. So if I can turn it into this hydraulic transmission, Mark Bell's brother, Chris Bell, who made the movie Bigger, Stronger, Faster, has terrible knees. He hurts if he jumps up and down. He put the vest on and he started jumping up and down. He said, my knees don't hurt. So my theory of how fascia interacts, with the world around you and the stimuli, if he's jumping with that and it doesn't hurt, well, then suddenly my theory starts to look, might be, you might be coming into X on the map here, because the theory states that it's going to be a more systemic pressure management as opposed to just localized muscles, joints. And he's not feeling pain. So, and I look at like science is a very slippery slope to preconceived notions, willful bias, subcortical willful bias, right? And sort of, not a very scientific approach to science. So depending upon the answer that you get to something depends on the quality of the question. So if I have sort of a paradigm look and I've sort of designated that core function is to prevent motion of the spine, which is the dogma of our day. Well, now I'm making all sorts of training choices and all sorts of technical things that's just missing the mark. And so now when I go to study something, well, what am I studying? Like, what's the parameters of the study? Like, we're going to take a spine and just bend it back and forth like that until it breaks. And then we know how many times that took. Well, okay, but that's not what happens in the body, right? If I'm articulating with these figure eights, I'm getting the nutritive benefit of cohesive integrated movement because the spinal discs don't have a blood supply. They're nourished by mechanical pressure. And if it's acute, like it's only leaning in on one plane, well, yeah, that's not going to be good. But if it's fluid and it's distributing that force, well, then it's good for you. The stress builds strength without deterioration. There's no hot spots. It's like you cook the whole thing perfect. as opposed to, oh, well, the flame was on that one little spot, that meat that's burned. Okay, yeah, that's an injury. So the science, my approach to science is let's never forget common sense, right? So let's just make sure that there's a logic behind it. So head in the middle, spine straight, foot on the outside. Well, I can't support it. Well, common sense would say I can't deliver the most productive force and receive it if I'm not even in balance. So there is something lost to the compensatory. There's something lost to a different force vector that you're dealing with now. So if I'm on that foundation of balance, and then I study videotape of all the fastest people, and they all do that, and they will tell you that they don't move their head. Michael Johnson, one of the best sprinters ever, insists that he did not move his head. When I look at it from the side, it doesn't look like it's moving. But as soon as I go to the front, yes, you too, Michael. Look at your gold chain. Boom, boom, boom. He's double downing with the arms, and he's head over foot coiling the core. Okay, so you don't even know that's what you're doing. So your intent in training is aiming off target. And because you're such a natural athlete, your body's not letting your brain betray you. It's saying, no, we got to win the race. We're going to do it. I don't care what you're thinking about. But now what I'm saying is, what if we think about it correctly? Well, now every ounce of effort can be directed to what we need to do. You know, if I press the wrong button, I'm not going to get what I want, but I press the right button. Well, now I've got a whole, I perhaps have a quantum leap and then a better trajectory forever, just because I know what I'm doing. So for me, science has to equate with the reality. Otherwise, I don't care what your study was. Like, I truly don't care, because you've now proved that bracing your core stiff is better. Well, it's not. There's something flawed with your study. You know, like, it just, you know, but the scientific authority is incredibly powerful. Because suddenly, if I'm the scientist with the peer-reviewed paper and the PhD and the 500 other papers, well, now I can just say, Trevor, where's your science? All you can bring me is anecdote, and we can't trust anecdote because we're scientists. And meanwhile, you're right and they're wrong. Right?
I'd recommend this to any coaches or even clinicians out there that are looking to build a business around a product that they already really believe in.
As a brand new user, just being sold on the streamline of being able to put everything in a centralized location. Anyone that is just fumbling with Google Sheets to Facebook messages, group messaging, text messaging.
For anybody that wants to be able to coach their clients, you know, many times you use different tools and resources, and when you try to manage that, even on a Google Sheet or on regular technology, you're limited on duplicating the data over and over.
I think if I'm going to, recommend the app for anyone, it's going to be myself. If I want to take my business to the next level, so definitely looking to do that in the near future here. Everybody can really benefit from it. I use it in the rehab sphere, but I also utilize it in the training thing. You can do the same thing with nutrition, right? There's so many uses for it.
For everybody, coaches, clinicians, anyone that kind of works in the industry, chiros, PTs, trainers.
This is one simple solution that we can create to all of our users and all our clients.
So if you want to create a way to systematize your business so you can scale, I have not seen a better product for that.
So I'm curious. Because you guys, how long you've had enough prototypes and you're going to be launching this new product, you have to have some data around it already, right? Like, as far as, because a lot of coaches look at just performance. Like, I don't really care necessarily about the science before. Does it make me run faster? Does it make me jump higher? Yes or no? Right?
Yes or no. That's exactly right.
And we can figure out the mechanics on why it does later, but like right now, people need to win gold medals, and like there's millions of dollars on the line. So does it work? Does it not work?
Fosbury's flop was not scientifically discovered, and it wasn't scientifically studied until decades later. Like, okay, well, why is it better? Because your center of mass doesn't have to go over the bar that your body's going over. That's why it's better. And you're harnessing the posterior chain to lift up, as opposed to having to deal with the anterior chain. right?
Mhm.
So that's one where the science was irrelevant, like you're saying. It's the result that rules, and then later the science will catch up. So art and science, art leads the way forward, and science comes up the rear and backs it up or whatever, right? So, and it's got to be sustainable, because right now that happens to be wrong, and it's not right later because you weren't right then, even though I thought it was right. Well, that's a perilous trap if I'm invested in that and I've built my career on that.
Right.
I have thousands of trainers all doing what I told them to do, that in hindsight, when you lift the veil, is actually counterproductive to athleticism. What? How do you deal with that emotionally? The pit in can you imagine the pit in your stomach if you found out that the foundation of what you've been doing is not optimal? I mean, good God, I would be like, I couldn't sleep at night. How am I going to deal with that? And I would have the wisdom to say, okay, beginner's mind, show me what it is, because I'm going to become expert in it.
Right.
Those who don't adapt will either adapt by force later, or they just go find something else to do.
So to kind of pull this full circle, at the beginning we talked.
Trevor, sorry, real quick. You asked about the data, okay?
Yeah.
Running upstairs, we have amazing staircases a half a mile away from the lab at the convention center. All right. The way that we measure time is we put a camera on a tripod that does not move, and your starting line and your finish line are not going to move.
Right.
So that means that I can take rep 1 and I can lay it over exactly with nothing changing in the frame except for you. I can tell you which rep is faster, and I can tell you all the technical aspects of it in slow motion video. And so I get a truest measurement of time. Because if I'm just click with no video evidence, then okay, I hit the stopwatch wrong, right? You're sort of like putting a blindfold on trying to throw the darts. But if I'm able to analyze it on video, frame by frame, and you're up the staircase before you're up the staircase, 100% of the athletes run up the staircase faster with the pulsars than without. All right, that is objective. That's video evidence, and I've got plenty of it, right? Doesn't seem to matter for the willfully ignorant in the time being, but that's okay because it will. Okay. Now, the subjective aspect is I ask the athletes, we're talking Major League Baseball, football, high school athletes, soccer, MMA, whatever. Every single one of them is faster. And when I ask them, I say, let's say I were the coach that we're going to punish you today, and you're going to do 20 more reps of the stairs. Do you want to carry these, or do you want to go empty-handed? And the universal answer has been, I want to carry these. Because the subjective burden of getting up the stairs is perceived as less, even though I got up faster. So that is unprecedented. It is 100% counterintuitive that I could weight the distal extremity and run faster. What? Like, wait a minute, explain that again. You know what I mean? Like, wait a minute, that's so counterintuitive that it's an invention. Right? Because nobody thought of it before, because why on earth would you? Right? There's no rules in track that says you can't carry a dumbbell on your, okay. And my business partner just held me up a sign, and he said, don't forget that we did that study with 30 different runners where we had them run a 400 meter, and we included world-class marathoners in this. So this was not just a bunch of, weekend warriors. We timed their 400. We showed them what to do with this, and we requested that they do 2 times during the week and come back the next week and run the 400. We had a universal improvement in the 400. And anecdotally, wow, I enjoyed that. And now I feel like I'm a better runner. Right? And now that's not peer reviewed. It's not published in some periodical, whatever.
Right.
But I mean, come on, right? We need to follow the anecdote as long as we're getting better results. And Dumbo can fly because he's carrying a feather with his trunk. I don't care. He's flying.
Right.
Doesn't matter to me if it's a feather or a a Caterpillar tractor and you fly back. I don't care. You're flying.
Right.
We can figure out why later, but to the extent we can figure out why, now we can target our training at the causal factors that create the greatest result. So it pays to know, but knowing is not essential. The technique and the doing is essential.
So I think this actually segues really well into we go back to David, the high school athlete, with the knowledge that David has now. How do you train differently as a high school athlete to maximize your potential and your ceiling?
I build everything that I do on the concept of coiling core training. When I have the polarity of the absolute maximum sprung coil where I'm in a position where I'm like this and this thing is funneling into my hips, I could hold as much weight as I could squat, probably more, and just hold it in that position. And then this side, longest. So I'm taking all slack out of the system. When one part goes, the whole thing goes when there's no slack. So I learned this and I learned this, and I learned how to seamlessly put them together. And then we train internal torsion and external torsion. So we're looking at three-dimensional movement, and we're not saying flexion, extension. We're saying torsion, because that's the actual biomechanics. So I would literally just do the training as we teach it, exactly the same principles. And what we tell the attendees who are coming to get certified is you're going to do the same thing over and over and over in different ways with different modalities. So we're only practicing principles. And if I had that training, I don't think I break this arm. I don't think I break that arm. I think I'm just better. I think I catch the guy. He scored a touchdown. I break my arm. I came from the weak side of the field. I chased that guy down on a diagonal and I caught him, but he fell into the end zone. And I break my arm. Maybe I catch him and he doesn't score and I don't break my arm. I mean, literally. But if I don't break my arm, maybe I don't invent the Bosu ball, so break my arm.
Right. So would that be complementary to the training that maybe you were doing at that time, or would you not be doing as much strength training? Okay.
No. Strength training for football, I would say that if you need to get bigger and stronger, time in the weight room is more valuable than time on the field, especially for certain positions. Okay. You need to be honking strong for football. Stronger is better. All things equal, stronger is better. So I want a football guy deadlifting. I want a football guy squatting. Like I want a football guy benching, but benching with a different intent.
Yeah.
Right. Because what's valuable in football is here. Right. If I can get to the inside, get under your shoulder pads, I'm going to drive you and win. Right. But if I'm like stuck out here and I can't even get to here,
right.
Well, this on a football field is not super valuable.
Right.
Right. So I would have squatted more. I would have deadlifted more. I couldn't really bench press because of that, but I would have been stronger in every single lift. And then I would have had better reps running, better reps jumping. And so I think I'm still a Division III athlete, but maybe I'm like, all league or whatever, on the, or whatever, recognized as one of the best or whatever. And what made me good at football was my head.
Yeah.
Because I studied game film and I'd devote 20 hours during the week of studying film. So by the time Saturday came around, I'm making keys and reads before the play. Like if I know the tight end's going to come here and try to get the ball, well, then I let the quarterback pretend I don't know, but I do know. So I jump the pattern and I pick off the ball just because I spent so much time in the film room to say, oh, well, the guard's split from the center is a little bit different and he's not waiting his hand. So I know that he's pulling up for a pass and I see that. Like I can make keys and reads in real time that put me in a position to make a play.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas a better athlete might be out of position and get back to position. I never wanted to get out of position.
Mm-hmm. And I mean, you actually see that a lot, right? Like the best athletes in the world really don't know how they became the best athletes in the world. They just are that genetically gifted, and they did a few right things along the way. Where I find a lot of value in the guy that was maybe a C student, but he figured out, or a C athlete, and he had to actually like figure out how to become a B+ athlete. And that person typically makes a really good coach because they understand how to improve the situation rather than just being gifted and able to do it over and over and over again. That's fascinating.
Along those lines, I say that athletic inadequacy is one of my superpowers because I have all the motivation I need now to figure out something different, because if I do the same, I'm guaranteed to lose.
Right.
Can I do something differently that gives me an advantage? And if I were a world-class athlete, nobody would know nothing. You'd be signing NDAs to come talk to me, right? Because I would exploit it for my own benefit. And then only after I set the world record would I then share it when I'm done running.
Right.
But because of my athletic inadequacy, it is only in my interest to get this out to as many people as possible.
Right. That's awesome.
As a gym owner, Coach Catalyst is the key to having low turnover. For several years, I struggled and spent 10 to 20 hours a week communicating with clients via phone calls, Facebook Messenger, email, and text messages. I had tried everything to make my life more efficient. I was at my wit's end. And then I found Coach Catalyst. Since starting the software, I have found a life again, and my clients are thanking me for being so involved in their fitness life. I've cut my daily commitment to interacting with over 300 clients to under 15 minutes a day and have streamlined my 6-week challenges. I couldn't recommend it more. I just don't know if I would even be here today if it wasn't for Coach Catalyst. If you don't have an account already, you're missing out and not helping the people you could be.
So, I mean, right now, how are you guys educating people? I mean, obviously, you're trying to kind of spread the word about all of this stuff.
Yeah, well, what we do is we certify coaches. We do our initial certification both online and in person. And that is a requisite for our more advanced, deeper education, which is the qualification. Qualifications can only be done live, and it has to be from someone who has demonstrated a proficiency in their practice that they're capable of teaching. And we're teaching you how to play the guitar. So we're not sitting you down in chairs and looking at PowerPoints talking about 19 soccer players did this, and therefore we're all going to stand and brace our core against whatever. Like, that is not it. We're getting up, we're moving, and we're giving you the skills right now. And what I say to the attendees when I'm there is I say, your expectation from what you're going to do today is that you should be stronger in your strongest expressions. So if you're squatting, expect to squat more. If you're overhead pressing, expect to press more. The reason why Chris Chamberlain, who is eroding weakness on Instagram, Chris Chamberlain, the reason why he is with me is because the first encounter, I spent about a half an hour with him. I taught him the coil. He went home and he set a 40-pound PR in an overhand bent press. He was struggling with a weight that he couldn't do for 2 weeks. Comes in here for a half an hour. I key him into the coil and he goes, boom. A guy like that who cares about strength and integrity, he got the result that was so unexpected that he came right back in. And that's when I taught him the ropes, and he devoured the ropes. So he very quickly integrated himself with such proficiency. And that combination allowed him to take all of his past education and in different modalities, all the way from aquatics to CrossFit. You know what I mean? Like, this guy had a broad array of silos. And what he said is that Weck method essentially created a connection of all the silos so that what I do in this arena has a positive carryover to this, as opposed to just a separate silo. And that's why he's the director of Weck method program. Is because, and his integrity is like, it's not about a product. It's not about a product. It's about the principles and the practice. So you don't bash a tool because the value of the tool is contingent upon your capacity to do something productive with that tool. And what we did was we go back to the fundamentals and the building blocks that I think in terms of technology, tools, weaponry, it begins with sticks, then it's stones, and then it's rope. And I believe that that's the very first thing that human beings started using to leverage our capacity to get more done, right? And if you're an arboreal creature that you're out on the skinny branches where the big cat can't come eat you, and I can pick off the peach and throw it down at you and have fun, the only way I'm going to walk the plains is when I have a big stick, right? The spear, the stone, I can crack open the coconut. Now I can leverage the power of a stick with a cordage, with a rope, because now I got a bow and arrow. Now I got a sling that's going to kill Goliath, right? So and then once you get fire, the control of fire, those four things give you dominion over the other creatures around you. Because once you control fire, that's the prime. You could hold an elephant off if you just held up fire in front of you. They don't want fire, right? They're bred to believe that that's the worst thing that I can move toward, right? So, and then there's two other factors. So those are the four: stick, stones, ropes, fire. And then I think it's the dogs of war, because fire brings the wolf, and the beta wolf will beg for scraps while the alpha wolf's going to go lead the pack and sire the next generation. So we create man's best friend, which is a dog. And then once you have a dog, I mean, think of the things that you can get done. And now if you're fighting against other hominins, the fire that keeps you safe is an advertisement of where you are. Send the hounds in. Right? And now you have wolves attacking others as the first line of, offense. Well, you just come in later and just, okay. Right. And then the sixth factor that probably happened throughout is secrets of plants. Like the stoned ape theory, like, oh, he ate that mushroom and he had something, and now he could see the stick flying through the air going into the deer, or whatever gave him the idea, right? And I think that those are the fundamentals of what built humanity. And so from an exercise standpoint, the tool is the teacher. The tool is the teacher. I'm not your teacher. I'm your guide. I'm your consultant. I'm giving you suggestions. Learn 4 patterns, no jump, with the rope. That is the best teacher that you could have. It's the Rosetta Stone of exercise modalities. It's a rite of passage, because once you have the ability, you have the ability. It's like riding a bike. So pre-integration, post-integration, the ropes, in my opinion, if I were going to leave this earth tomorrow and I had to give somebody the code to athleticism, I'd say, learn the ropes, just learn the ropes. You will assimilate everything else that you do faster, and you will go further if you know the ropes. And that is I believe that in every cell of my body.
Well, you answered my next question, which was going to be, what's the product that you feel like is the most impactful? And you answered it.
Yeah, I think, and the nice thing about it is you don't have to pay me any money to do my methodology. So it's information, and we give the information away for free. And we have a free ropes course on the website. You don't even need to buy a rope from us. And what that does is it democratizes the training. So there's very little, barrier to entry from some child in Guam who found a piece of rope on the playground, and her dad taught her the dragon roll, and now she's teaching other kids the dragon roll. There was no financial transaction that allowed her to get fundamentally better. And like head over foot locomotion. You don't got to pay me anything, right? Just use it, feel it, enjoy it. It's the ultimate creature comfort, is you coordinated and balanced. It's the best defense against pain, and the best, pull toward joy and performance. So by doing that, you're putting out a goodwill gesture that if it makes someone's life better, you're building trust that I'm not here to just sell you something. I'm here to empower you with something that's going to make your life better if you do the work. And so we get enough people doing that, we can make a massive change because it's not bottlenecked by, oh, you got to wait for 3 weeks until you get my little gizmo to, whatever.
Mhm.
This is no, start today. Like head over foot, just do it. Right.
I love it.
So, and because I want to reach everyone. And so check this out. So business plan, you're into business, you help trainers make more money in better use of time, a better career, better helping other people. That's why what you're doing is important and awesome.
Right.
Now, what my plan is this ubiquitous training tools. It's just an essential tool in the toolbox for everybody. That means I got cash flow because I got everyone, right? Everybody gonna be using it. Now, the next one, phase 2, this is like Elon Musk's master plan. Phase 2 is footwear and apparel.
Yeah.
Okay. And footwear is incredibly expensive to get into. So my foray into footwear will be an insole.
Yep.
This is a very rough prototype insole that has our patented proportion of your highest on the inside ball of the foot and your lowest on the outside heel. And it's very subtle, but subtle in the feet is profound.
Mm-hmm.
Like put a little tiny pebble in your shoe. You tell me how annoying that is, right? You got to get rid of that little tiny pebble. Otherwise, it just ruins the experience. This thing here helps you prevent premature collapse. So you're incented by feedback to land on the outside, go through to pronation as opposed to pronate too early.
Okay.
And so this will fit in any brand shoe, right?
Right.
And then next is a patented pitch with a recovery slide. Imagine going to the NFL meeting and the guys are sauntering in with their little slides and they got the perfect pitch. And I don't have to build 7.5, 8, 8.5, small, medium, large, extra large. Here you go.
Right.
And then after I get the money and the resources, that's when I make footwear.
Right.
And I've got some stuff on apparel that I can't talk about yet because by the time this airs, I won't have it ready. But that's it. And then the third phase, surfaces. Surfaces. Any three-dimensional object that you deal with in space, can we make it better? And just cast the net as far and wide as you possibly can and say, what if? See if you can make anything better. Right?
I love it.
And have the resources to put ideas into motion.
Right.
Because that's the most frustrating thing, is being this little organic inventor who, can't just, take 20 design guys and say, build me this.
Right. No, man, this is awesome. And I mean, the impact you're having already is only going to get bigger and bigger as this movement really starts to grow. You got me hooked. I'm going to go start playing with some ropes because I'm coming up on 40, not quite there yet. And I still like to play a lot of hoops. And so, I want to keep a lot of that agility and keep all these young guys in check for at least a few more years.
Yes. We have a free course on weckmethod.com for the ropes. You learn the ropes and you just think about your handles while you do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Think about your defense when you're doing it, right? Think about getting up and doing it. And I can't wait to see and hear about your experience in that, right? So, and I think ropes is really the place to start.
Cool.
And if I were trained,
ropes are the best, man. Ropes are the best.
I love it.
This is Tim Sheaf. He's world class, world champion parkour.
Ooh,
so this guy, like,
rope flow is so good, man.
he leaps over buildings,
right?
Not with a single bound, but with a lot of acrobatics.
Yeah. I love it. Man. Well, let's wrap this up. We kind of have a little tradition, just some rapid fire stuff, completely off topic to what we've been talking about. And then we'll let you get about your day. So first one, I know you're in Southern California, so we'll see what you say here, but taco, burrito, or quesadilla?
If it's a really good fish taco with great fish, then that's the one.
Okay. All right.
If it's a burrito, it's in a bowl. And if it's a quesadilla, I made it in the skillet at home.
All right.
So, and they all taste great. But I think it's the super quality fish taco.
Yeah. All right. I love it. All right. If you were reincarnated as an animal based upon your personality, what kind of animal do you come back as?
Oh, geez. I think it's some weird morphed creature that has honey badger in it. It has, it's got some form of big cat. There's a fox in there, crazy like a fox, right? There's let me think. What's the most tenacious animal that there is? It's just not going to stop. New Jersey, man, you got to kill me. I ain't stopping. So
I love it.
Whatever animal that is, that's the animal spirit.
I love it. I love it. All right. If you could live in any cartoon world for a week, what cartoon world do you live in?
Oh, jeez Louise. Maybe Roger Rabbit for that lady.
I haven't heard that one yet. I like that one. That's a good one. That's a good one.
I mean, that's the first thing that came to my mind.
I love it. All right, last one. If you could have dinner with any person on the planet, past or present, who do you want to break bread with?
Jesus.
Solid answer.
Yeah.
The world's wisdom right there. I love it. All right, David, if people want to find out more about you, Weck Method, everything that you've got going on, where do you live on the internet?
So weckmethod.com. It's constantly being refreshed. There's tons of great information on weckmethod.com. And then I am the David Weck on Instagram. Eroding Weakness, that's Chris Chamberlain on Instagram. Definitely worth a follow. You'll be so inspired, you won't even believe it. And then I'm on Twitter, or X, I guess, but the David Weck. But weckmethod.com is really our resource. And then,
cool.
The David Weck on Instagram.
Awesome. I love it, David. This has been awesome. It's been a pleasure. I appreciate you hanging out with me.
Well, Trevor, again, you put on such a first-class event in DC. I had an amazing experience. I tried to attend as many sessions as I could, and your team did such a phenomenal job that it was a wonderful experience. I met some amazing people. So you're obviously doing some great things. And, to the trainers listening to this, you may want to take a very close look at how you can leverage your capacity with these guys at Catalyst.
I love it. I love it. Appreciate it, David.
Thanks so much for listening to another episode of the Coach Catalyst podcast. If you are a coach looking to do more for your clients than just workouts, give Coach Catalyst a test drive. Try it for 14 days. Jump on call with your personal strategy coach, Ashley, and see how easy technology can be, all for free. Tell them Trevor sent you. Until next time, keep changing lives.